I'm Mark Bouris, and this is Straight Talk. Hey guys, we're at here, Circuit Crown, Sydney. What a place. What a joint. How good.
Beautiful.
How good. And welcome, Premier.
Thanks,
and
Mark.
welcome, Dana.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to our town.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Thanks for bringing UFC to our town again.
No, I love it. Love this town. Beautiful. Love it. Crowd here is great. Tons of fans. Been cruising around the last couple of days. Lots of UFC fans here in Sydney.
Yeah, well, they're mental for it. And I think to some extent we've got to thank the Premier and Destination New South Wales for doing the partnership with UFC in relation to this. So thank you, Premier. So what's behind that?
Yeah, we love it. I've loved the UFC for years and years. And when we were in opposition, not in government, we were huge fans of it. For some reason, the previous government didn't try and grab UFC, pitch it into Sydney, but it's been fantastic for crowds, great for the economy. And I also think there's a lot of young fighters that have come through as a result of the big promotions that have already taken place. So hopefully we can get it for a few more years.
He's been a champ for us. He's been, one of our biggest supporters. And yeah, I was just saying before we started this thing, it's incredible how fast it's exploded here. And not just as far as fans go and people flying in from all over the world for the events, but the talent here. We first started coming into Australia, there were like two guys. Elvis Sinisic was one of them. And now there's multiple world champions, top 10 contenders. It's blown up out here. It's insane.
Yeah, I want to just ask you, Chris, or should I refer to you as Premier?
No,
Chris,
please.
I just want to ask you this. What is it that you like about the UFC? What do you like about mixed martial arts? And what has the UFC brought, say, that you think is really able to be amplified here in Sydney, for example?
I always loved boxing. I'm like you. I always loved it, thought it was fantastic, but you never get the matchups. The absolute bouts that everyone wanted to see to be 2 or 3 years late. And then the UFC came through and the best in each division would be fighting twice a year, 3 times a year, and no one was able to duck a fight. And I saw what Dana was doing. I mean, I probably jumped on during the Mendes-McGregor era, saw it on television, thought it was awesome. I just got hooked from then. It was amazing.
So Dana and Chris just mentioned someone like Conor McGregor. So importantly, how important is it for you as the CEO of the UFC and the founder of the UFC to have characters like him from an entertainer point of view? Like he's a great at his craft, don't get me wrong, but I'm just talking about the character of the individual.
Well, the business is star driven, when you have somebody, we had George St. Pierre from Canada who ignited that entire country. Brandon Moreno down in Mexico, Weili Zhang, who's fighting here this weekend in China. Volkanovski and Izzy from this area. It's very star driven. So when you, Conor McGregor, when you have like a Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey who are globally, big superstars, that's what grows the sport. That's what makes people jump on board that might not have followed the UFC. It's very star driven. So
it is, but I think UFC is not just the fight game. It's sort of a brilliant game. And what I mean by that is that the way it's evolved from when you first started it, the way you use digital media, social media, the way you promote authenticity, you're like the real deal. Like take someone like Shui Tuivasa, like he's a legend here in Sydney, Thai. But the way you allow them to express themselves, you're not sort of sitting on people and they're not all the same. They're all different. And that seems to drag fans in. People love that stuff.
Yeah, thanks. We were actually just talking about that. We don't stop them from being whoever they are. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but it is what it is. These are all grown men and women who have their own opinions and their own style of whatever it may be. The women make just as much money as the men do. When you look at the UFC, it's very real and very fair. And when they talk about like the WNBA and the United States right now, tennis, golf, all these other things. When Ronda Rousey was here, Ronda Rousey made more money than everybody until Conor McGregor hit the scene. She was the highest paid athlete in the company because she brought in the most money. So yeah, the UFC is, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but yeah, we don't tell anybody what to say, what not to say, what to do. They all have their own personalities. Whoever you are, that's what I'm selling. Wherever you come from, that's what I'm selling.
So when you go to put people into the UFC, you got your contender series. Are you looking for individuals who are happy to express themselves? Like, are you,
no,
as part, or just the skills?
You can be a deaf mute. If you're a badass, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how good are you at fighting. If you have a personality like Conor and Ronda and these others, that's just,
that's good for you.
It's a home run. Yeah, it doesn't suck.
I think, and I don't know if you've been told this before, but someone like you you are a great icon for people who are aspirational. And I think that's one of the reasons why UFC is successful, at least in this country, because a lot of Australians are aspirational, particularly the people I see come to the fights, UFC fights, and I've been to a number of them. Do you see that as something that drives you in your own life? Because, you didn't start off as a multimillionaire or anything like that. You worked through the process and you had some good luck. You sold the UFC and you're now working in the UFC, etc. But your aspirational journey, do you see how important that is relative to the UFC brand, and do you live it?
Interesting. I love everything about this business. I love taking people that you see that you think have talent and finding out if they can become world champions. I love letting people be whoever they are. I love the fact that we can find the toughest people from every little place on earth, and they all get to come in and compete on the world stage. I love everything about this business. And I think that the UFC and its athletes are very inspirational. And these people that come from poverty and all these different walks of life. And, like I said, it's not like we're in the United States or regionally. The whole world gets to compete. And when you, like he was saying earlier, when you become world champion here, there's no question. You ran through the gauntlet of the toughest people in the world, and there's no debating that you are the absolute best. I don't know. Yeah, the UFC is. I love what we have here, and I think it's very inspirational.
And I think what the Premier was referring to is sometimes boxers can be managed. And you have a boxing background, so you know how it works. You can be managed.
It's the worst.
You can just manage them through to a point, and at some point they're going to have to face up. But
there's 5 or 6 different champions. None of them want to fight each other. The rankings are always more about money than they are about who is truly the best. We don't do that here. So
you're talking to an Aussie audience here, and probably you're talking to a global audience as well. But what makes Aussie fighters so good? What's your experience with them?
I was just telling him again. Our image of Australia in America was like Crocodile Dundee type. Rough, tough people here. Everything that exists that can kill you is here in the water or on land, from jellyfish to sharks, snakes, spiders. They're all here, and Australia is looked at as this really tough place with tough people.
And then, as a fight fan, I then look at the Dagestanis and some of those people from Eastern Europe, and I think to my God, they're tough people too, like seriously tough people. I mean, do you find that you have to find different characters from different regions to satisfy all your different customer base? Let's call it your audience.
No, I think one of the things that's fascinating about this business is, I'll give you an example. I just did a fight a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles, right, with an Armenian, and the main event was an Armenian and a Dagestani Russian, right? Now, back in the day in boxing, you'd had to have a Mexican in Los Angeles to pull a crowd. We were sold out, and we set the record for that new arena. I can go to Arizona with a Brazilian and a Canadian. I can go to anywhere in the world, even here. We have an American versus a South African in the main event in Australia, and it's sold out. And it's, it's fascinating because people just care about who the best in the world is. They don't have to be from Australia or from Los Angeles or whatever. It's one of the cool things about this sport.
And I think that's a really good point you make there, because your point is that the way you structure the fights, and then Chris said it a moment ago too, is you're going to be watching the best matched up against the best. There's no bullshit around this place.
Yeah, and it's actually weird because when we go into places, and if I had the card too full of Australians, Australia doesn't love it. Australia wants to see the people they watch on pay-per-view that they don't get the opportunity to see all the time. And it's like that when we go to Brazil. It's like that when we go to Mexico. It's like that when we go to Canada. This is a very unique sport.
But like boxing, you guys could have just stayed in Las Vegas and not moved. Like
100%.
It was obviously a decision to say we're going around the world.
The no-brainers back in the day, when we started this thing, it was you would do Las Vegas, Atlantic City, New York, and LA sometimes. That was what boxing had done, but mostly Vegas and Atlantic City because they were paying for the events. But we felt differently. We took this thing everywhere, all over the world. Even when we go to fight nights, we go to small towns, and our live event is so good. For those of you that are watching this, if you've never been to a UFC live event, I guarantee you this. It is the most exciting live sporting event you will ever see. Nobody ever walks out of a live UFC event and goes, yeah, I don't ever want to come see one of these again. It's the exact opposite. We traveled this thing all over the world because we knew, like you told me, your brother-in-law got you into the UFC. That's how it works. Somebody gets into it, and then they turn 3, 4, 5 more people onto it. And once you go to the live event, it's over. We got you.
Can we look at Can we look at this Sunday? And the main card is Duplessis and Strickland, and there's been a lot said about it. I mean, I've seen Strickland jump over 3 or 4 people and get stuck into Duplessis, and I interviewed Duplessis last week, and he's saying that he's confident that he's going to take it to the next level. He's saying that he's evolved and Sean has not evolved as a fighter. I'm talking about. What are you expecting? Fireworks?
Well, listen, Sean Strickland, for all of his, talking that he does, when he gets into the octagon, he's got a very, very good style. Nice jab, always stays composed. I ran into Duplessis in the elevator at the hotel and his coach, and they were telling me, I mean, these guys do everything right. That they're actually really smart in how they approach everything. He got here. I'll give you an example. He got here over 2 weeks ago to acclimate to the time and all the other things. I think that's one of the things that boxing has over us. Because we had such humble beginnings and we're only like 30 years old as a sport, these guys don't do the things that boxers do. Like when you were a boxer at that level, making that kind of money, and you were the main event, the camp was all built around you. You had your own camp, your own training partners. You would get into a place early, like I said, to acclimate, whether it's to altitude or time differences or temperature or humidity. All these different things play a factor in the fight. And I think Duplessis' camp did a great job of getting here early. Ronda Rousey, when she flew over here to Australia and lost to Holly Holm, she came straight from filming a movie, got here 3 days before the fight. I had a hard time making weight because of it, and obviously the time difference. And you saw how that fight ended for Ronda. Duplessis, really, him and his team and his coach is brilliant, have a great game plan coming into this fight.
But I remember you saying that Australia is the home of the upset too.
It's true. It really is. That is true. And I think all of the things that I just mentioned are part of the reason. They're all factors in it. And Duplessis' camp knows that and have really looked at this thing like professional boxing does, and how they set up their whole camp and their strategy to come into Australia. And
you just, it's interesting you mentioned that, Chris, the Australia's the home of the upset. Last weekend, I was tuning into Izzy's fight, Israel's fight, and there was an upset for me anyway. He got knocked out and TKO in the second round, I think it was.
Izzy?
Yeah.
The Izzy fight?
Yeah. And did that surprise you? Because I saw you interviewed later and you said you didn't expect it.
Yeah, listen, Izzy looked incredible in the first round. Yeah. Absolutely picking him apart, chopping the calf kick the whole round. At the end of that first round, his face was all busted up, his leg was busted up, and Izzy got caught in the second round. Anybody can get caught with a big punch. But yeah, what's the question you're asking me? Was I surprised by the upset?
Were you surprised for it?
No, anybody can get caught.
Yeah, and that's sort of the point. Anybody can get caught, and that's sort of the point about Du Plessis, because Strickland's a dangerous fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good defensive fighter, but he can get dangerous.
100%. No, he's going to get in there and mix it up with him, and it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah. So Australians love toe-to-toe. I mean, we are sort of, I wouldn't say aggressive, but at least the fight fans are. We like to see it rip in. We like to see guys rip in. And I said to Du Plessis, would you stand toe-to-toe to him? He said, absolutely. And you know what's something very interesting he said to me? I said to him, are you prepared to die in the ring? He said, I'm prepared to die. And he said, I'm prepared. I know that I have to be prepared to kill someone.
Who said that?
Dricus. And I said, and he looked me straight in the eye, and with that really strong South African look that he has, and I actually believed him. And
all of these guys. I mean, if you go in and you're going to stand toe to toe for 5 rounds, and remember, you can punch, kick, knee, elbow, take a shin to the head. These people are wired differently than the rest of us. That's what makes professional fighters, and especially in MMA, so different as far as humans go. There's this many of them right here that become world champions and have that type of mindset. They're not wired like you and I. They're different. They're special human beings. And I mean, I think that's all of their mindset when they go in and fight.
So the octagon is really a true battlefield. Like it's a true, and I think that's part of its appeal. Could I ask you this? And I'll ask you too, Premier. Really unbelievably great fighters. Who is the number one? Is it John Jones? Who are we talking about? Who do you think?
You know the answer to this question. It's absolutely positively John Jones. John Jones is the best ever. It's become this running joke almost now, but listen, nobody can debate it. Nobody can debate that John Jones is the greatest to ever live. He is, and I don't just say this in UFC, in MMA, ever in the history. If you look at his skill set and what he's able to do compared to boxers or anybody else that's ever fought, John Jones beats everybody.
I've actually seen him wrestle or do jiu-jitsu with Gordon Ryan. And he's, even with someone like him on the floor, he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's quite incredible.
John Jones is the best ever.
So he's only got a couple more years, I guess. But how do you find the next person who will be the greatest ever?
Well, what you do is you keep going out, and one of the things, here's what I do for a living. Every day when I go to work, when you have a brand like the UFC, there's all these ancillary businesses that come off of it, from merchandise to video games to gyms, et cetera, et cetera. All that stuff is whatever it is. When I go to work every day, I focus on the core of this business. And the core is finding up and coming talent, putting on the best fights that we could possibly put on, making sure the live event is absolutely perfect, and making sure that what you see on television is the best that we could possibly do. As long as I focus on that every day, you can't mess this business up. It just continues to get bigger and better.
And because you don't protect the fighters, because everybody has to protect their belts, you do have to make sure that you got a pool system or a farm system of people coming through all the time, right?
Yeah, that's what, one of the big things that I work on, whether from the Ultimate Fighter to the Contender Series,
Looking for
a Fight. Exactly. All of those things are designed to not only go out and find the young up and coming talent, but how do we make them big right out the gate? How do you think about this? The Contender Series, millions of people see these people fight before they even step foot in the UFC.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's all about finding talent and making sure that the live product that we present is the best that it can possibly be.
I think a lot of people, particularly Australians, and because people talk to me all the time about it, they see you as Dana White, as somebody who's made a lot of money some years ago, and he's running the show these days. And they ask the question, what gets him up in the morning? Why does he go to work? Why the hell does he do it? I mean, I have my own views on those things, but I'd love to know what drives you. What is it? What's the deal?
I have this, it's like people always ask me, do you ever look around and say, oh, you did, look at what we've done? I don't. I'm always looking to, I think that every day when you get out of bed, you should try to be better than you were yesterday, whether it's physically, professionally, mentally. Every day when you get up, try to be better than you were yesterday. And the same thing about the business. The business is, it's not, look how big this event was that we did yesterday. What can we do tomorrow that's bigger than this? I'm just always trying to take everything to another level.
Where do you get that drive from, though? So, but were you some little kid growing up thinking to myself, I want to be this dude, or is it just the vitality you get from it, like the energy?
I have no idea how or why or any of that. Just what I love to do. It's like, I started Power Slap. I saw slapping on Instagram in 2017, and this guy Dumpling out of Siberia, Russia, and what I saw is that what I noticed, I wanted to see who won. I stayed around long enough to see who won, and as I started to take a deeper dive into it, I said, I think I'm going to do this. And obviously it wasn't a very popular idea with a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't love it. But it's the fastest, most successful thing that I've ever been a part of. We just did one in Saudi Arabia. It was our first one there. The next day when I went to meet Sheikh Turkey, he was going crazy over it. It killed it. It did 4.2 million viewers. It was the biggest. First of all, this thing's a juggernaut on social media. It was the biggest one we'd ever done on social media. And he just signed up for 5 more. He ordered 5 more events in Saudi, 4 this year and 1 in America. Why am I doing that? I don't need to do that. Why am I doing this? I could have retired in 16. You know what I mean? I don't know. This is just what I love to do. I love to build brands. I love to do things that people say can't be done. And I'd like to just, I don't even think we've scratched the surface on how big the UFC is going to be in the next 10 years. We got a new rights deal coming up. There's a ton of places that we haven't been in a long time. And there's some places we've never been, like South Africa, like Spain. I love to build.
It's, if I look at what you have built, like it is a juggernaut. It really is. How big are we talking about? Like how many employees would you have across the globe?
Yeah, I mean, God, including employees and people that we contract. I mean, talking thousands, of course,
thousands.
Thousands of people.
So you are sort of, to some extent, you are helping economies. So I'm going to go back to you, Chris.
The economic impact we have when we come into cities all over the world is massive.
Then that's what I want to find out. Like, is that the reason why? Is that one of the reasons, Chris, why you do a partnership with UFC? Why the New South Wales government does a partnership with UFC for economic impact?
It is in part. I mean, we get a big economic multiplier from the UFC coming here. People come in, they spend money, tourists, they have a good time. They don't just go to the fights. They make a weekend of it, which is fantastic for the city. But also, I don't have a problem with this, but we spend a lot of money on opera and classical music and a ballet company. But the truth is there's millions of people in Sydney and New South Wales that aren't particularly into that, but love MMA and love the UFC. And ultimately, we want to bring events that they can go to, that they can feel part of. And so I think it's got to be equitable. I'm very democratic about these things.
That's very interesting. You actually have a view on making things equitable in terms of entertainment, basically.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the second part of this, as we talked about earlier, is that we find it hard to get through, particularly to young men, about dropping their devices, their electronic devices, getting off the sofa, getting out of the house. And as I've said a lot to the media in New South Wales and Australia, a lot of people don't understand the life that you have to live to be an MMA fighter. You have to be incredibly scrupulous with your diet, the fitness. It's all encompassing. And it's ultimately a very clean living, outward, ambitious life. And I think that they're good values, genuinely good values for a lot of young people to have. And frankly, Mark, a government advertising campaign on me putting out a media release is not going to cut it. I mean, if these fighters can get through to young people about living the kind of life that's positive, it's a fantastic thing for the state.
And that's a big call, a really good call too, especially for New South Wales. Dana, talking about health, I see that I was looking at something where you did a fast. You're into your health, and you did something with Gary Brecker.
Yeah.
And you look, I couldn't believe it. Like,
Thank you.
I saw you with the shirt off, like, unbelievable. Before and after. How important is health to you in order to do your job?
It's everything, honestly. Before I met Gary Brecker, I was having a lot of problems. I couldn't do what I'm doing right now. I've been on the road now for 2 weeks. I couldn't have done this 3 years ago before I met Gary. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm into fasting. I literally, went to a couple saunas here. I'm into the sauna now. You do like 185 degrees for 20 minutes. You guys got some saunas here that are no joke, like these old school. I was in Chinatown last night in this sauna that the last 5 minutes of doing 20 minutes of a sauna let you know who you are and who you are not. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, ever since I got into this whole health kick, I've never felt better. I feel like I'm 30 years old again, and I can do things that I couldn't do 3 years ago.
So and do you get any inspiration from watching fighters live their lives? Because they're in a cold bath, they're in a sauna, they're into health, they're into the right food, they have dietitians, et cetera, et cetera. Do you get inspired by them to take control of your own health?
I get inspired by anybody who has the discipline. It's all about discipline and consistency and getting in shape and taking care of yourself. And yeah, I love doing things that challenge me mentally and physically, and to push myself. Cold plunge. I got the cold plunge set up in the room here in the hotel. It's 39 degrees. You get into 39 degree water for 3 minutes, 185, 190 degree sauna, and stay in there for 20 minutes. And when that's how you start your day, there isn't too many things that you're going to run into the rest of the day that can challenge you like something like that can. I love doing stuff that has the potential to mentally break you. I love that stuff.
And they say that type of behavior, that sort of activity actually develops a certain part of your brain, which for people who do these things like Wim Hof, et cetera, their brain has a certain part of their brain is actually larger than the rest of the normal people, because doing something you don't want to do actually creates a certain sense of achievement for the day.
No doubt about it.
Everything else seems easy after it.
No doubt about it.
And you're living your life like that.
100%. Every day, literally every day, even when I'm on the road. We were just in Saudi for a week. I had the whole setup out there in Saudi. I'm here for a week. I got the whole setup here. We're running around town looking for the best saunas to get into. Yeah, I love doing these things that are physically good for you, but that have the potential to mentally break you. I love trying to mentally break myself. And when you overcome that first thing in the morning, yeah, like I said, there's not much that's going to hit you the rest of the day that you can't deal with.
I can give you something that could mentally challenge you. Could swap places with the Premier early this week, because he's been in the octagon all week.
We've had a rough week.
That's what he was saying to me.
Like you could swap positions. I mean, you'd be doing something you probably wouldn't want to have had to do. In terms of in terms of Sunday, for the fights, we have the girls as well, and we just want to look about the co-main event, and we have some other people on the card too. Who are you looking forward to seeing? Who are you looking forward to showing us their craft?
The fight that hasn't been talked about enough is the co-main event.
Yeah,
Tatiana Suarez and Weili Zhang. Tatiana is and has been one of the hottest prospects, in the sport now for a while, but has had tons of injuries that she's had to overcome. And Weili Zhang is one of the baddest women of all time. She's so exciting and fun to watch. I'm very excited to see how that fight turns out. Yeah, I think it's a fight that hasn't been talked about enough. It's an incredible fight. Co-main event.
Chris, have you been following the card?
Yeah, I think the main one, Duplessis and Strickland. Strickland just keeps coming, and he shocked Australia last time around. And as we spoke about earlier, it's the land of upset. So I can't wait to see that bout. I think it'll be awesome.
And I got to ask you this, Dana. What about Volk? Is there a chance of coming back? We love Volk.
Volk's a legend. I mean, if you look at what that guy has done in this sport and in that division, he's an absolute legend. I get to this place where what more does he have to accomplish and achieve? He's done it all. I don't know personally. I haven't talked to him about where his head is and, what he's thinking about the future. But when you talk about a guy like Volk, he's done it all. He's an absolute legend, not just here in Australia, but worldwide. And when you talk about inspirational figures, he's one of them, man. If you look at his journey and his story and what he's accomplished in his life, I don't know. It's up to him. Whatever that guy wants to do, he's the guy that, there's been these situations where we picked up the phone and said, we need you. And he's in, absolute stud, absolute legend. And whatever he wants to do next, I'm in.
Well, Chris, he's involved being Alex being a boy from Windang and Wollongong, your territory, not where you live or certainly not your electorate, but he's a good, working class kid.
Yeah, he's a legend. We love Alex.
He's killed it. And he's, would you like to see him back in the octagon?
Yeah, I'd love to see him back, but on his own time. I mean, I think he takes fights at a short notice, but I'd love to see him have a big, long camp, get ready for a big fight, hopefully have it here in Sydney and flatten whoever Dana puts him up against. But I think because he's just prepared to fight and take it on so quickly and he's enthusiastic, sometimes that's sort of cut against him. But he's an amazing guy and he's an inspirational fella too. I mean, he's been fantastic for young people south of Sydney in the Wollongong area, Dana, just not about 100 Ks from us here. He works a lot with the PCYC, as does the UFC, in local communities, a lot of disadvantaged young people. The UFC has been fantastic partnering with these organisations. It's really worked.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I'd like to thank you, Premier, for coming in today, and I thank you very much for Dana.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.